Opposites. When beauty is only a masquerade, it is actually ugliness. And goodness, if it is not sincere, is not truly goodness. Existence and non-existence are incompatible. The difficult and the easy are mutually opposed. The long and the short, the high and the low, the loud and the soft, the before and the after are all opposites. Each reveals the other. The wise are not conspicuous in their actions or given to much talking. When troubles arise, they are not irritated. They produce but do not hoard. They act but expect no praise. They build but do not dwell therein. And because they do not dwell therein, they never depart. I said at the end of the first chapter that this was translated first into English in the 1860s, and that was John Chalmers in 1868 was the first English translation that had been predated, though, at least in Western society, by Julian Stanislas in 1842, who translated the Tao Te Ching into French. So there is at least a chance in 1842 that a French translation could have made its way over to American culture. Still, it is accurate, to the best of my knowledge, that this text was not available to America's founders. It's interesting when you look at a figure like George Washington, however, where you see something like the wise are not conspicuous in their actions or given to much talking. When troubles arise, they are not irritated. And these are aspects of leadership that Washington was known for in his time. Producing but not hoarding, acting but expecting no praise. Obviously, this is a guy who went on to become the first president of the United States. He received praise. I'm doubting he felt slighted by the amount of praise that he received, but he built and then did not dwell therein. He put aside and refused to continue in the service of leadership of this country. I think in this chapter, the idea of opposites is setting up the rest of this book, perhaps to just put us as the readers on unstable ground. Obviously, this is a tool that people have used from a religious perspective, from a self-improvement perspective, to be self-evaluating. So when you look at the idea of beauty being a masquerade, or rather, when it is a masquerade, it is actually ugliness, or goodness, if it is not sincere, is not truly goodness. That leads us to the question of justice not being justice, fairness not being fairness, honesty not being honesty, when they are not truly the thing themselves. And it's interesting that this builds on chapter 1 by talking about the fact that honesty, truth, beauty, goodness, fairness, we can talk about them, we can point to examples of them, but our definitions are not necessarily likely to line up perfectly, nor are any words sufficient to truly explain, for example, the lived experience of being honest. No matter how many words we use to describe it, it's not the thing itself. Aldous Huxley talks a little bit about this in Doors to Perception. And another name that I wanted to mention here, because I think that this was someone who intentionally studied the Tao Te Ching but was more involved in Zen Buddhism, was Alan Watts. And when this talks later about each of the examples of opposites revealing each other, I think Watts talks about this in the idea of relativity, and in fact, the self and the other, the nature of the way that we all live together and we organize our society, especially when it comes to something like political parties or in-groups and out-groups, is that they are reliant on one another. And in fact, by having a foundation of respect for the consent of the other, it allows the differences to emerge and be healthy within themselves. Again, this is chapter 2. This is helpful. This is useful. I'm curious about your thoughts. This is one interpretation. What do you take away from it?